Broadcasting live from the IRS Medic studios, it's Parental Advisory. Live?
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 Live, hopefully.
From the IRS Medic studios?
Here we are today, live, hopefully, and we're not experiencing technical difficulties. If you could, on the other side of that camera, give me a thumbs up if you could hear me. It's not working that way. Anyway, today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to get out of jury duty.
I don't mind jury duty. Well,
Really?
I like every time I've had jury duty, I get called. I would either get a babysitter, I get the day off of work. I show up with my coffee and a book, and I sit there and relax and read. It's really not that bad.
So you never had to actually sit through a jury.
No, I never got voir dired.
Juries it's kind of long. If you ever sat through a trial, it's really painfully long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was somebody who sat through trials.
Oh.
Even when you're part of the trial.
It's tedious and long.
It's really tedious, even when you're doing it, even when you're actively participating in a trial. It's still, oh my God, this is just taking too long. Can't we all just get along? Right?
Guilty, not guilty.
Something should happen. Yeah, so with jury duty, there is definitely a way to get out of jury duty, and there's definitely not a way to get out. And that's what I want to talk about first, how not to get out of jury duty.
Okay.
Let's go back to the year 2000.
Ah, yes. It was a good year. We had survived the dreaded Y2K bug.
And we had a little bit of a problem.
Yes.
You and I were at a party in Vermont, somewhere in the sticks of Vermont. And what happened when the clock struck 12?
The lights went out. All the power went out.
Who were you with?
There was a bunch of us. Kevin, my husband, who's here. We were at Jamie's house. Yeah, we were in the sticks, and the Y2K bug hit, we thought, for a split second or two. Some more than others.
I had it off for 4 seconds. It was the prank I waited 2,000 years to pull. As it was getting to midnight, with the Y2K bug, definitely going to drop planes from the sky. I snuck off to the basement. I already scoped out the circuit breaker, and I could hear upstairs. I was there.
Yay!
Upstairs is counting down. People were doing it. 3, 2, 1. And I flipped it all. And then
silence. And it lasted a few seconds. People started to figure out pretty quickly, like, where's Anthony? He's such an asshole. Yeah, it was Anthony. That was Anthony. But I'm telling you, for a split second on some faces, there was sheer terror. Nobody would admit it, but I saw it.
I did my job then.
You did
That
well.
was wonderful.
Yep. So good year.
You know what else happened in the year 2000?
What?
I was between my first and second year at the Quinnipiac University of Law.
Okay.
And I had a summer job as a temporary assistant clerk in the New Haven Superior Court.
Okay.
And that was fun. They taught us how to basically be attorneys and follow the rules and the unwritten rules and how to get things done. And I also learned I learned a little game to play, and it was circling the bases. And this is how it was. My first experience with state workers. You'd go, you ask somebody to say, oh, hey, I need to file this somewhere. Where should I go? And the clerk would go, oh, go to the 7th floor. You go to the 7th floor, and they would say, oh, go to the 9th floor. And then the 9th floor would go, oh, you need to go to the case coordinator. You go to the case coordinator. Oh, you need to ring the chief clerk. The first person you asked, right?
Fantastic.
And then when you say, when you come back to say, oh, here, I need to file this, they said to come back, he takes it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess I'll do it now. Yeah, so that's state employment. And anyway, I was also clerking, and so they had us look at civil cases, criminal cases, and I was the clerk for a voir dire,
Okay.
which is French for to speak the truth, I believe. And that's where in Connecticut's Superior Court, you have an individual voir dire,
Right.
where you're allowed to ask jurors questions. You try, if it's somebody you don't like, you try to get them dismissed for cause.
Yep.
So you don't have to burn one of your preemptory strikes.
Got it. Now,
So that's the game.
Who's in the room?
You have the judge.
Yep.
You have the defendant in this case. You have defendant's counsel. You have the prosecutor and the court monitor, transcriptor. That's what they call them now. And I think that's about it. And then you had a few other people because this was a murder trial, which is, not every day sort of thing. This is a murder.
Yep.
So interesting. So other clerks were in there who weren't on any assignment. They're just sort of watching what's going on, maybe learn a few pointers of how to conduct an effective voir dire,
Okay.
what kind of questions you want to ask your prospective jurors. Again, you're trying to get people to reveal something, some bias to say, you know what, this person's not going to be a good juror for us. And hopefully, if you don't want them, the judge will say, yeah, we don't think this person should be on the jury, so nobody has to use one of their strikes.
Got it.
So that's where we were. And so this case was the murder, and the accused was a Puerto Rican gentleman, I believe. And he had an interesting look about himself. He had very closely shaven hair, but he had a widow's peak. But he didn't like his widow's peak, so he shaved it straight. But you could see that there was stubble there. So as I was looking at this guy, I said, "What, man? You got a problem with widow's peaks? What the hell?" I thought we
rocket.
Right. I thought we were all brothers here.
Yeah.
You know what the hell, man? You come on, this isn't right. Then second of all, you're not being convincing about it. And so at that point, I was like, "Well, guilty. I've seen enough."
Fantastic. Juror.
So yeah, so I probably would have made a great juror, and luckily I didn't have to do. Now, somebody came in. I remember a woman came in, and she was so frightened. She was probably 55 years old, and she just sat down. She was just shaking, nervous, and she was breathing. And before the defense attorney asked a question, just says, "Ma'am, are you having a hard time here?" And she just looks and says, "Yes." Yeah. Okay, you can go.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah, so that was it. So that's one way, I guess,
Yep.
is you could just look absolutely frightened and scared. She was really, really scared by the whole thing. But, and that's somebody who wasn't quite scared, but you see he came in with a little saunter. Was sort of looked Armenian, or as far as I could tell. I don't know. That's what I'm going to go with.
Okay.
That's the story I tell myself. And so he got up, and the defense counsel asked, "Sir, is there anything that would stop you from giving the accused a fair trial?" And he says, "Yes, I'm racist."
Wow. Just put it out there.
Yep. He goes, "I hate black people. I hate Puerto Ricans." And he looked not quite easy with his answer.
Yeah. I'm racist?
Will that get me
I
off?
don't like, what are you, Puerto Ricans?
Can I go home now? Well, it didn't go that way. It didn't go exactly his way. So the defense counsel says, "Oh, you're racist against Puerto Ricans. Well, did you know? The accused is Puerto Rican."
You don't say.
And so he said, "But I noticed you're wearing a Yankees shirt there." Because this is how people dress. Modern, 2000, you dress like, well, I put my best T-shirt on, I guess. Nothing had blood on it, right? So that's how you dress for court. And he says, "Well, I know you're wearing Yankees. Bernie Williams plays center field for the New York Yankees, and he's Puerto Rican. Did you know that? What do you do when there's a fly ball at center field?
Yeah.
Do you just turn your back?"
Yeah.
And the guy's just trying to. The answers weren't really answers, just like groveling,
Uncomfortable.
like, "I made a horrible mistake. Please, somebody stop the pain."
This was such a good idea when I woke up. It was such a good idea.
So it was like 10 minutes of that seemed like half an hour. But then the prosecution started.
Wait, so nobody was like, just let the guy go. They're like, we're going to lay into this guy. Okay.
And the judge was like, "Yeah, continue."
Fantastic.
And so the prosecution started in. He goes, "So you don't like Puerto Ricans? And look, I just want to see, maybe we could work through this bias. Everybody has bias.
Right.
Maybe we could work through it, and you could be a fair and impartial. Give this guy a break. I'm on prosecution. Maybe you will." And so he says, so the guy says, "Well, all right, so it's Puerto Ricans you don't like. So the question is did any Puerto Rican rip you off in a business deal?" The guy says, No. The prosecutor says, "Well, you're a heterosexual man, right?" "Yes." "Did a Puerto Rican ever break your heart?" "No." Mm-hmm. "Oh, well, then what happened? How did this happen? Out of nowhere one day? Was it just a thing? You woke up one day to say, I hate Puerto Ricans?" "No, it didn't happen like that." And then finally, so there was enough. The guy was ripped up, open court. There's a transcript of it, I'm sure, somewhere. And then the judge just says, "Okay, that's enough. Sir, I'm going to excuse you. God help you if you ever need a jury."
Oh, smack down by the judge.
And so he just crawled out of there.
Yep.
Thinking, God, what a horrible idea.
Oh, I owe Ted $10 now. He told me it wasn't going to work.
God, it didn't go like you thought. Yeah, I got out. So that's how to get out of jury duty without dignity.
Yes.
But there is a way to get out of jury duty with your dignity intact. And in our next segment, we'll be talking about that. Hi, this is Anthony Parent, and this week with IRS Medic News, today's story, the federal government ruled in favor of the federal government and Rand Paul's FATCA case. We have the preliminary injunction ready for download there to IRSMedic.com. Check out that story. Yesterday, I talked about some of the dirty tricks partners attempt to use against a partner they're trying to get rid of in the business to dump a tax problem on them so maybe they can buy their share out at a discount. Some things you could do to avoid that happening to you. And on Wednesday, I talked about some of the latest OVDP blacklisted banks, some Swiss banks on the bad boy list. That's what you should do if one of your banks is on that list. And on Tuesday, I did something, talked about some of the common streamlined OVDP, little webinar on there, about 10 minutes long, going over a program, what it is all about. And on Monday, we had a real interesting story. Optima Tax Relief, one of their enrolled agents pled guilty to getting a levy release, but the levy release wasn't from the IRS, it was from him. He used whiteout to create a levy release for something that 8 to 10 clients. Who those clients are, we don't know, and 8 to 10 is a range. Which one is it, right? How many more people? So check out that story and more at IRSMedic.com. Well, we are back, and we're going to talk about how to get out of jury duty with your dignity attached.
Excellent.
Now, I thought this was a great mystery. I thought this was going to be a great mystery. One of these questions where only a keen legal mind like mine.
Yourself.
Indeed. And so I asked Chris Chen, our engineer,
very creative guy.
A couple months ago when we had this whole idea for the podcast, I was like, you know what would be a great episode? How to get out of jury duty. I said, hey, Chen, you know how to get out of jury duty? He goes, yeah, just tell him you know about jury nullification. And I was like, that's it. You got it. I'm like, all right. Okay. And so that ended the conversation.
Yeah.
And I thought it was much more of a surprise.
I had never heard of it before we talked about it.
So jury nullification. You want to know what jury nullification is?
Yes.
For those who don't know, for those who are not Chris Chen or brilliant legal minds, jury nullification is where a jury agrees that the exact crime charged, all of the elements are there, and that you should find them guilty.
Okay.
But you say, nah, not going to do it. So why does jury nullification exist? Well, it's part of the constitutional protections. Founders of the Constitution said, well, you know, one way to protect against a government that's out of control is the jurors will always be that final word. And if they don't like a prosecution, they think it's political or they just think the crime is stupid, they're going to say not guilty. And so that's an important check on government power.
It's fantastic.
It's awesome.
It's very awesome. So when you started talking about jury nullification and I wanted to sort of educate myself, I started doing some research, learned all the facts, and then I stumbled upon this cool story about a guy named Doug Darrell living in New Hampshire, and he was facing felony marijuana cultivation charges, okay? So National Guard flying over his house, and they happened to see 15 pot plants, marijuana plants growing in his backyard. I don't know if they just happened to be flying around New Hampshire and were like, Dave, do you see that? Is that pot? Or if they were like, hey, black guy moved into New Hampshire. Let's fly over.
Whoa, easy. You're the girl from Wallingford, Connecticut there. I don't think you're entitled to throw any bombs there.
True. But nonetheless, so now he goes to trial. And I think it's pretty neat because he turned down several plea deals, including one that included no jail time or fine. So you don't go to jail. You're not going to get fined. And he was like, nope, I want to go to trial. He insisted on a jury trial because he didn't think he was guilty of anything, as marijuana is a sacrament in his religion. So they go to trial, and what I think is interesting, too, in New Hampshire is the jurors were fully informed right off the bat about jury nullification. They were like, yep, this is jury nullification. This is how it works. Fully inform them. Most, I'm sure you know this, most trials don't go that way. And about a year after this trial in New Hampshire, they passed a law. New Hampshire is the only state where every single solitary trial, they let the jurors know, live free or die in New Hampshire.
So now this brilliant technique to say, hey, I'm going to get a jury duty in New Hampshire. If you say, hey, I know all about jury nullification, they'll say, great, that speeds things up.
Yes. So to our New Hampshire listeners,
there's
stay
other
tuned
ways.
for next week's podcast. So the trial goes on, and in the closing arguments, the defense now is a little nervous, okay? So the defense says, hey, jury nullification can only be used in exceptional cases. Sort of confusing. Now the jury is like, I don't know exactly what's going on. Can I use it? Can't I? So as they went to talk about this, now all the jurors are sitting around. They're trying to figure out, is he guilty, not guilty? Some of them were really unsure about what it meant. So what they did is they asked for the judge's original definition of jury nullification, and every single juror on that case agreed to acquit him due to jury nullification. So, as they were deliberating, going back and forth, I think it's pretty neat that every single person on that jury, every single one was like, not guilty, jury nullification.
That's awesome. Power to the people.
Yeah,
right on.
yeah. And so I listened to an interview with one of the jurors. Her name was Kathleen Converse, and it was so cute. In the interview, she called herself, she's a self-described straight-laced little old lady, okay? And she said, and I thought this was really awesome, she said, Mr. Darrell is a peaceful man. He grows for his own personal, religious, and medicinal use. I knew that my community would be poorer rather than better off had he been committed.
And that is brilliant.
That's awesome.
Isn't that the way our legal systems should work?
Yeah. It worked like it was supposed to. And a cute little old lady was like, let the man smoke his pot. He's not hurting anybody. Just let him have his marijuana.
Where the community gets to decide who is behind those bars.
Yeah.
Right? Because the community is the one who's going to be paying for that.
Exactly.
So they really should be the ones. And so that's just, I love this.
Yep. And what I thought was also interesting is that as they were deliberating, it was stressed to the jury, do not talk about what his, the word.
Nullification?
No.
High?
So, nope. They were saying you can't talk about what's going to happen to him if he is guilty.
Right.
Okay. So you can't think he's going to go to jail. He's going to get a fine. He's going to get, what's going to happen. So they were told you can't talk about that. And I guess a couple of the jurors started to at some point. Listen, it's just going to be a little fine. Let's just find him guilty. He'll be fine. So interesting that they couldn't talk about the sentencing. So, and it's true in the same as tax crimes. You're not allowed to think, okay, it's just a little tax crime. He's not going to go to jail. It's just this. So yeah, very interesting that they weren't allowed to talk about what would happen with the sentencing.
Well, then I would say, Claudine, if you do live in New Hampshire, I think one way to get out of jury duty then to say, well, I know you guys aren't going to allow me to consider the crime, and I know you won't tell me what the crime is, and so I'm sorry, but I can't rule either way or one way when I don't know the full consequences of what my decision will be.
True.
And I think you'll be excused for that.
Yep.
So even in New Hampshire, that will work.
Yep.
So I think, what I think we should do?
What?
I think we should talk about how jury nullification works in federal tax crimes and federally, especially with white-collar crimes.
Ooh.
And how people and how jurors think about that.
Awesome.
And we'll be back in a few after this.
Coming up Monday on Parental Advisory, Secret Drug Addictions of the Third Reich. Be sure to visit our Facebook page to follow us and submit your story ideas. And thanks to our sponsor, IRS Medic, real tax attorneys for tough tax problems. Visit IRSMedic.com for the latest news on the horrible disaster that is the U.S. tax code.
All right, so let's talk about jury nullification in tax crimes.
Yes.
And also applies for a lot of white-collar crimes as well. Do you have any idea how many people in the United States right now are in non-compliance with the U.S. tax code?
I have no idea.
Let's just say there's about 150 million tax filers.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a number.
150 million. I don't know. 20 million?
That's a little, well, probably, actually. I mean, how do you define non-compliance? Is everyone's tax return correct? And when you file, when you sign a tax return, when you're doing that, you're saying, I understand all the laws.
Yes.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. I just found that out, that we have an accountant do our taxes, and I just sign it. Yes, he's an accountant. He knows what he's doing. Correct.
And that will never save you.
Yes.
Just saying, well, I hired someone to be my legal representative to handle all my tax affairs. That doesn't work because as a taxpayer, you are always ultimately responsible. It is a non-delegable duty.
Oh.
Actually, yeah.
That was the word of my day on
That
my
was
calendar.
right. There it is.
Wow.
That it's a crazy thing. We are the only country in the world that really has it like this. All the other countries, they don't really put the taxpayer on the hook for so much of their compliance costs. When you sign your 1040, you're saying, yes, I read all the instructions.
Oh.
And I understood the law behind it all.
It's like when you accept terms and conditions online. Someday they're going to come and take my child.
Well, that's the difference here. Someday they might look to do that if you get hung up a little bit. And with tax crimes, things work a little different, a little strange. Things are a little strange, and things don't happen the way you think they do. And I've been doing this a while. I'm not a criminal defense attorney. I refuse to do that. What we do is we help defense attorneys out getting the case and sort of blowing the IRS's case apart.
Yep.
What happens, this is the way things work, is that people think that there's justice. Okay, I don't know what to say about that, but there's a system. There's a criminal justice system. Criminal modifies which word? Criminal justice system.
Yeah.
It's criminal, is what I'm trying to say. What happens is, and I had a Treasury Inspector General attorney come in to investigate some wrongdoing that we were accusing an IRS agent of. And he was really nice.
Well, you guys are ballsy.
Oh, yeah, we do this all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they know where we are. They stop by all the time. One time, we had some come by. We had agents come by. They thought we were accountants because the accountant they were grabbing stuff from had this as his old address. So they were coming to us, and whoa!
Oh, snap!
Even though we're attorneys, that makes sure. Wow!
Yeah. There's no Optima employees in here.
No, we're not doing that. That's something. But he came in and he was helping us out with a case, and I don't know, something was bugging me that day. I was a little testy. I said, and I'm pointing at him, I'm getting in his face. I said, here's the problem with everything. You guys only go after the easy targets because who wants to risk their entire career going after an actual criminal who will actually bust your stones and might even threaten your life for daring to prosecute him?
Oh, good point.
You guys just go for the easy convictions of somebody who's going to fold and plead guilty right away and who doesn't pose any threat to you whatsoever. And so I did that. And he goes, yeah, you're right.
No.
Yeah. He goes, yeah, you got it exactly right.
I never thought about that. They're not going after the mob. They're going after the white collar guy who's going to crap his pants, admit he's guilty, and then...
And you also charge the wife too.
Oh, you do?
Oh, because you know that's okay. There's going to be a plea. Just don't no, not my wife, not my wife, and then they'll plead to any crappy charge whatsoever.
Wow.
So that's the dirty trick they pull, and in a way, and to put yourself in the Department of Justice shoes and to give them, everybody has a reason for why they do what they do.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they do what they do. That they're judged on convictions.
Really?
Because convictions is something you can measure. How many convictions did you get? Oh, this is how many I have. Okay, well, then you should get a promotion. How do you judge somebody on balls?
Right.
And wow, you really went after one really nasty guy.
Yeah.
And that's really what it takes. When somebody's really nasty,
yeah,
you're talking about your whole career.
You know what? It's interesting you say that. I have a friend who's a state trooper, and she said she goes after the really hard to get criminal. It takes a lot of time to get all the evidence. But somebody, that had more tickets got a promotion before her. But it's just a guy pulling people over for friggin' speeding.
Right.
Yeah. So
and
it's the little ones.
We have a system that always rewards something that's objective as opposed to that subjective, because I think we've trained a lot of judgment and discernment out of people People just aren't expected to have that. And that's
Right.
probably a subject for many, many more podcasts.
Podcast
But
number
just sort of
7.
think about how it is that they're really going for that easy conviction.
Yep.
That's what they're really looking for, somebody who's going to fold, because that's what they're rewarded for. They're responding to their stimulus. I'm sure if they were allowed to free reign to go after the really mean and nasty people, they would.
Yeah.
But it's not really there. And also, you could be a really suppose you do. You go after a really mean and nasty guy. Well, he might be found not guilty.
Yeah. You find
Right?
horse heads in your bed, right?
Right. Also, what if he's convicted and then also decides one day to say, you know what? I know I'm convicted of tax evasion and I've decided to flee to Switzerland, but I'm really tired of being a criminal. I think I want a presidential pardon. So, how much of a check do you need, Bill Clinton?
My wife will cut it for you.
And we're talking about Mark Rich,
Yep.
somebody who was, I don't know how mean and nasty, but he wasn't a great guy.
He wasn't a law-abiding citizen.
And he wasn't, I don't think he was really somebody who, was in a gray area. It seemed like he was really scummy.
Yeah.
And did other things too. And so what he did is he bought his pardon. So he wrote a check to the Clinton Foundation, and Eric Holder goes, oh, yeah, this is the one we want to approve. And it's like, after all those people, after the jury.
It's his last day in office. It was Clinton's last day. Oh, by the way, I'm going to pardon this guy. Bye, guys. Good luck.
Hey, my library. Awesome. So it's just, you've just negated the work of everybody. And I mean, how much that must have hurt everybody. All that hard work that those people put in, thrown away. So what lesson did those prosecutors learn?
Yeah.
Go after people who aren't going to have political pull.
Yeah,
And then the conviction will stand.
exactly.
So really, it's like when I look at where I look at the people at risk for prosecution is like, you have to realize that the IRS press release, they really need to get something over about 600,000 in the press release.
Yep.
Preferably millions, because for the average person, $1 million is all the money in the world.
Yeah.
When you have negative money, that's a lot of money. Sure, you got them.
I could buy a lot of booze with $1 million.
A lot of lottery tickets too. I
Yes.
mean, you're guaranteed
$1 million
to win.
lottery tickets.
How could you lose? So that's so tax prosecutions. It's where the prosecution starts is that discretion of who we going to prosecute. There's millions of people. You could decide on who to prosecute.
Yep.
But you need the right amount, and you also don't want somebody with you want somebody with enough money, but not too much money where they're going to lawyer up with one of the really good ones.
Yeah.
Because that criminal defense, when you look into experts like hiring us and and when you're hiring a defense attorney team that's going to run through mock trials, get mock jurors, do everything necessary to win or give you the best chance. No one's going to guarantee you a win. There are people who can get you a really good acquittal. Your legal fees are gonna be $300,000,
Jeez.
$1 million, and who not a lot of people have access to that.
Yep.
So they really don't want somebody who's gonna put up that kind of fight.
Yep.
So you want somebody who maybe they can get $20,000 for an attorney, because that means they're going to get rolled over.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a lot of attorneys out there who pretend to be litigators, tax defense litigators,
Yep.
and they're not. And they'll just go and they'll plead with the Department of Justice to say, hey, please give this guy a deal, da, 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 da.
Right.
Well, the Department of Justice knows who these guys are. Like, well, I know you never go to jury, you never go to trial, so here's the deal. It really sucks. And then they bring it back to the client like, well, that's terrible. I want to go to trial. Then the attorney will say, well, you should get you should get a trial attorney after they spend tons of money.
I don't do that. I don't actually lawyer.
Oh, you want
a lawyer?
Oh, whoops.
So now if it does end up going to trial,
Mm-hmm.
so you've got a jury of people who probably aren't given all the evidence.
Right. They're not, well, that's everything. You're only given a specific amount of evidence.
Yep.
And, here's the thing about taxes. Do you think that judge, the judge at heart is an attorney?
Right.
Our number one profession we represent here at IRS Medic, Parent, and Wynn LLP, the IRS Medic, is attorneys.
No kidding.
Attorneys are just horrible when it comes to taxes. And I talked to one of my favorite clients,
Yep.
who is also a client. And I'd mentioned, it was like, yeah. And I said, hey, don't worry about it, man. Attorneys are the world's number one tax client.
Yep.
And he goes, God, you're right, though. I guess you're right. And he goes, you know why? Because we're so used to getting away with it.
It's fantastic.
We're always breaking the rules and we're always charming our way out of it.
Yep.
And he goes, I've learned it doesn't work with the IRS. It gets you to a point, but then at some point it stops. They're
Right.
just not gonna, that's far enough.
Yep.
So that judge is an attorney. And why do attorneys hate being in compliance? Because they don't understand it. It's crazy.
Yep.
The tax is crazy. So the judge really doesn't understand what any of these taxes are.
Mm-hmm.
He's relying on the IRS to tell him what's going on. Well, they work for the government too, so they must be
help 'em.
telling. I know. And the IRS is just so wrong on so many things. It's a difficult place to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're somebody with the competence, you're not necessarily going to get that promotion. But if you have that objective measurement of improvement, hey, you close this amount of cases, you're going to be the one moving up. And so that's who they have, not necessarily the most sophisticated, trustworthy person,
Yes.
but somebody who's going to be very confident, very sure,
Yep.
even though they're completely wrong.
So then the jury now is listening to this, and they probably don't understand the laws because who the hell understands tax law? And so, you know, and then they have this great trial attorney who's just killing this guy, you know, definitely guilty, definitely guilty. So the jurors now go and they deliberate. And yeah, they're not allowed to talk about sentencing. So nobody's going, all right, listen, should this guy have paid his taxes? Yeah, but, you know, he's guilty. And he ends up going to prison for X amount of years, taken away from his wife, taken away from his kids. They're not allowed to think about that. They're just allowed to go guilty, not guilty.
Yeah, they're given a specific picture. Most of the jurors actually don't know that. They just think it's like a civil trial.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what would the IRS be doing here if this guy didn't owe taxes?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
hey, look, guys, it's just a stupid tax case. Guilty. Let's move on.
Yeah.
You know, they're not thinking that, holy crap, this is a really big deal that's going to uproot this gentleman's entire family.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, usually people are about 50 years and older. So it's really happening in a time in their life when they are making the most amount of money, where they're trying to save and do a lot of things to get their kids through college.
Right.
And it all is stopped.
Yep.
Because somebody decided, hey, this is a guy we can get.
Crap.
And we can get that. And he didn't take and usually most of them are going to plea. I think 94% plea.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yes, he should have paid his taxes, but
When they in the rare case where they go to a jury, the jury is just assuming the IRS is correct because what do they know? And so
Yeah.
you have to fight that bias. And the jury has no clue to what the consequences of their verdict will be.
yep.
And I always wonder, so how do these jurors feel
Yeah.
after the fact?
After they find out what he was sentenced to.
I just destroyed this guy's life.
Yep.
For what? For the government? Because the government's all on the up and up, right?
Yes.
The government doesn't screw people over left and right.
$1 million toilet seats, isn't it?
Right. Thank God we did this. Right. And so that's it's a very, jurors, I think jury nullification, especially in federal crimes, even if the judge tells you, if you're in a federal court, you can tell them, I know about jury nullification, and I know you're not going to tell me about it, but I know it's the law. You can do that. Now, you'll probably be excused. And actually, there was a gentleman in Denver recently putting out literature
Yep.
about jury nullification.
In front of the courthouse, just handing out little flyers.
And they charge him with jury tampering.
Yep. Hello.
Wow.
What about the my rights?
And all you're trying to do is tell people about constitutional rights. And so that's how crazy things are out of line. So really what I'm hoping for, is the word gets out about jury nullification and that it no longer becomes grounds to get out of jury duty.
You know what? I'm hoping that some of our listeners get called for jury duty and try this and put it on our Facebook page. I'm dying to see if anybody will do it.
If it will work.
Yeah.
It will work. It's right there in the law.
Yep.
And your defense attorney, the defense counsel will probably go with you. They'll say, yeah,
Yep.
Is it the law, isn't it? And that's always something to think about when these federal crimes, they're regulatory crimes. And one of the distinctions between crimes people don't really think about, the government's just charging somebody. But let's think about the crime. There's two different types of crime. There's a malum in se crime, and that means it's a bad crime. It's really wrong to murder somebody.
Yes.
Okay? There's a victim in that case. There's a clear victim. Then you run into these malum prohibitum crimes. It's illegal because it's illegal. Wait,
Not
I have it
because it's
backwards.
wrong.
Malum prohibitum.
Oh.
Wait, yeah. Malum prohibitum. The bad thing's prohibited. So I have it the other way. Malum in se is the one that's just illegal because it's illegal.
Right.
Malum prohibitum is illegal because it's really nasty.
Yep.
The malum in se are your regulatory offenses. It's illegal because it's illegal. So in that case, you got to ask yourself, who's the victim here? And if here's something to think about. That defendant there, sitting right there, is going through a nightmare. So if you're in a courtroom and you can't see the victim, it's probably the defendant.
Let the man smoke his pot.
Right on.
Well, thank you for that fact. Now we will test it and see if we can get out of jury duty with our dignity intact.
Awesome. All right, that wraps it up for today. And on Monday, we got a good show on Monday. We are going to talk about
The secret drug addictions of the Third Reich.
the first war on drugs.
Thanks for joining Parental Advisory, hosted by Anthony Parent, produced by Claudine Gindel, that's me, engineered by Chris Chen. For more podcasts, visit our website at parentaladvisoryshow.com and like us on Facebook to submit story ideas. We'd like to thank our sponsors, IRSMedic.com, the law offices of Parent, and Wynn, LLP, real tax attorneys for tough tax problems.